What's going on, everybody? I'm Patrick from POWLAX, and in this video I'm going to be talking about a couple of trick plays that you can use if you're ever man down on a restart to either get out of a double on your offensive end or just to clear the ball from your defensive end. If you haven't already done so, make sure to check out all the other videos on POWLAXmastercoach.com. They're all free. You just got to sign up, and I may send you an email at some point. So, getting to these trick plays. These really aren't even trick plays. They're really just subbing patterns where if the opposing team doesn't match feet with all of the players who are moving, they're going to end up being offsides. And for the most part, many teams don't actually see this coming, and so usually we have players who are wide open. So whether we are on the offensive end and we want to get out of a double, or we're on the defensive end and we want to clear, we're going to make the same three movements in different ways. First, we're going to cross the midline off box. Then we're going to sub a player on whichever side he crossed to off the field, and then we're going to send another player on the field on the opposite side. Now we're going to get to the first example where we're going to talk about getting out of a double within our man down restart. And within this, I'm going to show you a couple of the keys that we want to make sure we do in every other scenario. So, as we see in our setup, we're man down. The LSM got this penalty like all LSMs do. And we have a double right here in the middle. It would have been off of a restart where we had possession at the end of a quarter, so we're starting with the ball here, and they are doubling with their two deep holes. And so the first thing we want to make sure we do is that whichever side we want to catch the ball on, which we obviously want to catch the ball on our offensive end, we want to make sure that the defensive team has as many players to that side as possible. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to make sure that if anything goes wrong, if they're trying to match feet, like someone doesn't cover quick enough, that they'll be offsides. Odds are one of the three players who are making their rotations, if they haven't trained it, are going to be offsides or out of position. So that's the first thing we want to do. The next thing we want to make sure we do is that we spread the field, and that wherever our player is coming onto the field, that he has a lot of open space to run. The final and probably most important thing is all these movements have to be made simultaneously, most likely just before or just as the whistle blows. So let's cover our movements within our getting out of a double. So right before the whistles are going to start, we're going to want to make all of these actions, or even as it's happening. The first thing we want to do is this midfielder here is going to come back to the defensive side of the ball. The defenseman near the box is going to come off of the field. And then this midi who's kind of waiting here, he's going to come onto the field. Hopefully all three of those things happen and the ball is passed over to this midi coming onto the field. And so if we're man down and they are doubling, they don't just have a defenseman inside, this is actually going to create transition for us on this half of the field. And if you're a run and gun team, you might want to try to exploit it. Here's a video of us running it in a game last spring. As you can see in the clip, we have a midfielder up top who's about to come across the midline. What you don't see here is the defenseman who's about to come off of the field. And number one here on the sideline, he's going to come onto the field and accept a pass. This worked out really well because the side that we were trying to attack was on our bench side. Had number one been trying to release on their bench side, it would have looked a little bit odd, and so I think they might have caught on. Now we're going to talk about how you would run this in a clear type scenario. And so I'm going to show you two specific ways where we want to throw the ball up the field rather than diagonal across it. But either one of these formations and the rotations will work the same way depending on how you think the other team is going to play you. And so once I get through this, I think you'll understand a little better exactly what I mean. So the first thing I want to point out is that the defensive half of the field, so right now we're clearing from here. On the defensive half of the field, they have their 6 players. So we've once again hit that key of making sure that they have the maximum number of players on this side of the field. And so we're just going to follow the exact same rules. We're going to cross the midline with the defenseman here off box so that it doesn't conflict with anything in our substitutions here. We're going to sub the attackman off, and we are going to sub this midi on. And if that works, we should have a nice easy pass up here. Now, one of the things I want to mention here is this is one of the tough situations where we might even want to flip to the next one we're going to do, because it's really weird if we have the red bench right here and they're like, what are you doing? Like, why is this kid from the other team by my bench? And so they may be able to kind of see it coming. So it's really good to be a little bit coy as you're doing this. Like maybe you walk out to the midline and you're kind of make a scene so that they don't really see it coming. But it is a little bit tougher to get this opening if you're on their bench. So now we're going to cover how it might look if the ball is on the opposite side of the box. And so we're going to start our clear from right here. We're going to follow all the same rules. They have 6 players on their offensive end, which helps us. And so now what we're going to do is same basic idea. But this time we're going to reverse what we're doing. First, the defenseman is going to come off. The midfielder is going to come on. And then this attackman is going to come down. And so now we should have this nice little pass up to the attackman, and then he can run it out. Now, it is possible to just use this 20 yards to throw it caddy corner all the way over, and it's also possible to reverse it like the last one where we'd actually step over with the pole here, get an attackman off, and then have the midi come here and just throw it diagonal across the field, but that seems to be a little bit tougher to do. I don't have any really great video of this because when I ran it in season, I actually ended up having too many midfielders back. And what it ended up doing was, since their players were back, the defenseman knew he could go across. And so he just followed our attackman. We didn't have it. We ended up actually puking it up the field and then had a nice little transition goal, but you know, it could have worked. But so if you don't have all of their players on the side, the maximum number of their players on the side you want to catch the ball, you end up giving them an advantage because they can continuously cross the midline without having any type of violation. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe. Head over to POWLAXMasterCoach.com and check out all the videos there. If you want to support on Patreon, I'd really appreciate it. It's patreon.com/POWLAX. Have a good one. See you in the next video.